Good morning, my friend. It is 4 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday, 26 August, 2021. Lisa's back. We got the whole family unit back together. Lisa, Dennis, and I, and Harvey and Lewis all here back on the river after Lisa's urgent trip back to San Antonio. And I am really excited this morning. I'm bringing you a special throwback episode. Back in January, I introduced you to my cousin, Will McDonald, Lisa's cousin, my cousin by marriage and by love. And Will has an amazing story, and I just want to bring this back. It's almost 100 episodes since Will was on the show. But we're going to have Will again soon in the next week or so because he's got a remarkable update to his story. Now, we told you his story of how he walked away from a lot of things that were going on in his life that had to change. And I just thought as we're wrapping up all in August, just to be a great testimonial, nobody went more all in with his life-changing decision to change his life by changing his mind than Will McDonald did. So I thought it's been almost 100 episodes. We've got hundreds, maybe thousands of new listeners over the last few months, and probably most of you haven't gone back and as far back in the podcast as to find Will's episode. So I'm going to bring it back in preparation of his big announcement and his update on his story in a few days. And we're just going to talk about how Will went all in. The original episode was back in January of this year. It's almost 100 episodes ago already, believe it or not. There's been 95 or 6 episodes since Will was on the show. And so I'm going to leave it as is. Don't forget wleewarrenmd.com/prayer if you want to connect with us with prayer with folks all over the world. Don't forget wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter. Sorry, got my tongue tangled a little bit. If you want to connect to the newsletter, that part of the community is great. It's every Sunday since 2014. I brought you my best ideas for changing your life by changing your mind, and we give you all the prescriptions and great way to connect with the community of people all over the world via the newsletter. But I have one more special announcement. I'm testing out a new feature on the website where you can call in and leave a voicemail, ask a question or make a comment, and I can include that audio on the show. Now, the website name, the URL that they gave us is kind of clunky, so I created a new one, and it's bit.ly, bit.ly/Dr. Lee Warren Podcast, all one word, all lowercase, and it is case sensitive, bit.ly/Dr. Lee Warren Podcast. So bit.ly/DRLEEWARREN podcast, bit.ly/Dr. Lee Warren Podcast will allow you to leave a voicemail. You can use your phone, your computer, whatever, but you can leave a short voicemail, and I'd love for you to test it out so we can see if it's going to work, if the interface is going to be clean, if the audio is going to be good. But if you send me a voicemail, I'll choose a few of them and use them on upcoming episodes. Now, my idea with this is to create an opportunity for inside of an episode for me to be able to say something like, hey, tell me what you think about X, and we're going to do an episode about that in 2 weeks. So you'll have 2 weeks to send a voicemail, and we'll create episodes based on your feedback and your interaction. I'll be able to interact with you a little bit more cleanly, and since this is not a live podcast, we can't do that in real time. Maybe we'll do that someday, but for now, this would give us a little bit more interaction, and you'll have a little bit more opportunity to be invested in the podcast. Now, don't make me you, right? Don't say words that I can't include on the show, or I'll have to beep you out. I'm just joking, of course. Most of my listeners aren't the kind of people who would make me them, but I'm just saying, please keep it classy. We don't want to get political. We don't want to get nasty. We don't want to be negative. We want to, hear your voice, and we want to hear your stuff, but I obviously can't include things that are inappropriate for the broadcast. So just send me a message, ask me a question. Let's try it out. bit.ly/Dr. Lee Warren Podcast. With that said, we're going to play the Walk Away with Will McDonald episode because nobody went more all in than Will McDonald did. And as always, we're going to start today. Good morning, my friend. Dr. Lee Warren here, coming at you from North Platte, Nebraska. It's still really windy, and got a special episode for you today. My wife, Lisa, her maiden name is McDonald. Of course, you know Dennis McDonald, my father-in-law, that we've had on the show before and who lives here with us part of the time and lives in Texas the rest of the time. Well, Dennis's brother, Will, and his sister-in-law, Aunt Pat, have a son named Will. They call him Little Will, which is ironic because he's a huge man. But Little Will is Lisa's cousin, first cousin, and of course he's my cousin by marriage. And I've never met Will, but a few months ago, apparently Dennis was talking to him, and Will was at a difficult point in his life, as everybody was going through difficulties, COVID and all of that. They had a conversation about what Will needed to do to make his life different, and part of that was he needed to put some different ideas in his head. So Dennis shared my podcast with Will, and a few weeks ago, Will and I had a conversation on the phone for the first time, and Will shared some kind of amazing things with me about what had happened as a result of him deciding to change his life. And one of the things he did in changing it was to use podcasts, and my podcast and others, as a way to have some different thoughts in his head than he had been dealing with. And we ended up having this great conversation today that we'll share with you on the podcast about the power of changing your mind, about the power of changing your habits, about the power of community and friendship and idea sharing and being willing to share your story. We had a really kind of wide-ranging and very inspiring to me conversation that I think will be helpful to you. And I wanted to share it with you because Will's story is a great example of what happens when you draw a line in the sand in your own life and you say, you know what, no more. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I'm not going to suffer under this anymore. I'm not going to have this habit anymore. I'm not going to let this particular thing ruin or drive my life anymore. I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and I'm going to start today. Hey, I'm so glad to have you listening today. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. I live in Nebraska in the United States of America with my incredible wife, Lisa Warren, and the super pups, Harvey and Lewis. I'm a neurosurgeon and an author, and I'm here to help you harness neuroscience, the power of your brain, faith, the power of your spirit, and good old common sense to help you lead a healthier, better, happier life. Listen, friend, you can't change your life until you change your mind, and I'm here to help you learn the art of self-brain surgery to get that done. You can get the show notes and more on my website at wleewarrenmd.com, and please add this /newsletter, wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter, to connect to this great community of people all over the world who are changing their minds so they can change their lives. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. Welcome to the podcast. Will McDonald, Little Will, my cousin. We're grateful to have you with us today. Hey, folks, let's get after it. Okay, my friend, we're back, and I'm really excited, as I just told you, to visit this morning with my cousin by marriage, Will McDonald. Hey, Will, how's it going?
I'm doing great, Lee. How are you doing?
Good. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I know you're getting ready to move, right? You're literally car is loaded up, and you're about to hit the road, right?
Yes, sir. I'd like to put myself in the industrial area where I have the greatest opportunity for reemployment.
That's cool. So 2020 was kind of rough on you, right? You, what were you doing for a living, say, before 2020 happened?
I was in New Jersey on a 2-year contract, building the largest mall in America. I was a superintendent.
Wow.
For the general contractor, and hung some structural steel, and then I was the superintendent over the IT build out over the mall.
Wow. And then so when COVID happened, what happened to you?
They sent me home for 2 months to use the vacation I never had an opportunity to use due to the fact that we were working 6-7 days a week. And I came to San Antonio. Luckily, my cousin, or my nephew actually, said, yeah, you might come down here to my apartment. So he has a nice little spread right here on the creek here in San Antonio. So I hung out here for a couple of months with the expectations of going back. And then they called me and told me I was being laid off. And then they said, well, there's another job down in Texas, just hang loose. Well, that didn't come to fruition. So they, released me. And then, it got kind of, I did a lot of reflecting, and then I played some golf with Uncle Dennis, your father-in-law.
That's my wife, Lisa's dad.
Yep. And I was given a lot of time, Lee, due to COVID. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. We don't get to control very many things in our life, but we can't control the very next action. At least I thought I could at the time. And, there's a lot of emotions and anxiety when under chronic usage.
Yeah.
When you're consuming a half a gallon a week of alcohol, there's a lot of fear in quitting or even having a thought of it.
Well, let's back up for just a second there, because you kind of jumped into something that I don't think I don't want anybody to miss. So you were using alcohol as a way to cope with the big changes that were happening that were outside of your control. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay, so what'd you do? What was a typical evening like for you? So you get home from playing golf or whatever. What's the day look like for you after you've lost your job here a few months ago?
Well, I'd wake up in the morning, have a Bloody Mary, continue on with a little vodka and cranberry, and close the night off with a cigar and 4 or 5 glasses of scotch.
Wow. So you're having, now Will's a big man. You're 6'4", 6'5". You're a big dude.
Yes, sir.
But that's a lot of alcohol for anybody.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of went from the workforce into this. Would you say you were depressed? Did you feel depressed?
There was, obviously due to, the functionality of the brain being clouded by the chronic usage, there's a lot of things going on, or not going on actually, due to that fact that you're using so much. And the anxiety and the depression and the fear and the what if, it literally just takes over your life. Yeah, literally.
That's right. And so you were using alcohol as a coping mechanism. And at some point, what happened that made you say, hey, I got to do something different than this? Like, what happened?
Well, I had a conversation with my son, and I don't get to talk to him much. And, you get this, he's deployed a lot. He's attached to a helicopter squadron.
He's a Marine, right?
Yes, sir. And right now he's a supervisor of the squadron on its current deployment. So it's very limited time I get to talk. Mostly it's him talking, me listening. And,
is he in Okinawa, or where's he at right now?
Right now he's in the Philippine Sea.
Okay.
On a carrier, the little carrier that's attached to the 31st MU, MAG 24, Marine Air Group 24. So we were talking, and I just brought up someone we knew in common, and he goes, Dad, I don't know about that. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I don't think they're going to be good for you. And he goes, Dad, I'm just like you are. You taught me to be, to surround myself with priority people. So with Wyatt joining the civilian world here shortly, and wanting to come down here to South Texas and start his life as a civilian, I wondered to myself, obviously thinking about a lot of other things in my life going on at the time and looking forward in this COVID problem, how long I'm going to be unemployed and how much I'm going to end up drinking. I wondered, am I going to be a person on Wyatt's priority list of people? And that really set me back.
Wow.
Emotionally. Like being on an island.
Wow. So you're worried about your influence and your relationship with your son. You were looking forward to something different and worried about whether you would be successful in that new arrangement with your son when he got home, right?
Correct. Yep. And how my friends would view me and would I even have any friends, the crazy thoughts you have. Yeah. Luckily, along with Wyatt, I have some priority people in my life I lean on, from Texas to New Jersey, back down to Nebraska.
Yeah.
And on an aircraft carrier somewhere in the Philippine Sea. So that was and still remains a very strong support group for me. Now, as I like to think, staying close to the scalpel.
That's right. That's right. Now, we talked a little bit, so this all came about, folks, by Will. So Lisa's dad, Dennis, as you know, was living with us for a while. Then he went back to Texas for the winter, and he'll end up living here permanently at some point, Lord willing. But basically, Will shared with Dennis that he had been listening to my podcast, and we ended up having a long conversation on the phone one night. It's where this invitation to be on the show came from. So at some point, Will, you made this decision that you needed to stop drinking, and you did something different to swap out those activities. Tell us that story.
Well, Dennis, I want to pay the due here to my uncle, who's always been a solid person in my life and somebody to look up to. He paid it forward. He gave me that gift. The gift was you and your message, the podcast. I didn't know it at the time, but, I just had to get out of my way. He gave me the gift of freedom and peace and a clearer path forward in my life. I just didn't realize it at the time. So I started listening to the podcast, and I just jotted down a few bullet items. And that was August the 17th. And I told myself at August the 18th, I'm going to stop this and I'm going to change my life. Whatever I have to do with this time, other than drinking alcohol, I have a few bullet items here that I would follow literally standing in the garage before I pushed the button at 6:30 a.m.
Wow.
Start walking. And I would walk anywhere from 5 to 8 miles a day up to 50 miles a week. And I would hit this right here. Form follows function. Change your life and you'll change your mind. Win the morning, win the day. And I will only fall to my highest level of preparation. And while I would walk, I would reflect upon these things while I was listening to podcasts. All thoughts aren't valid. Biopsy the thought, rephrase to a positive thought. And I would take that and interpret that into these thoughts are mine, be a better me. All these negative thoughts are coming from me. So why can't I turn them around to positive? I actually have control of the thoughts. And lousy attitude lobotomy, be happy despite the situation. I still have today, make it count. In other words, just don't throw today in the trash. Give yourself an honest effort, you know. Number 3, radical surgery. Don't live in the past. You can't move forward if you're looking in the past. I'm going to win this one. And just this one is what I'm going to focus on today, right now.
Wow.
Severing sick synopsis formed by repetitive actions. In my thought, get busy getting busy. If I'm doing these good things for myself, you know, I'll keep myself away from the bad, right?
That's right.
And my favorite one, drain your doubts and fill up your faith. I can, I will, I did, and I am winning.
Wow. So you did self-brain surgery. I mean, that it sounds so cheesy when we say that, but that's what you did. You decided to change how you thought and therefore change how you act. And what's been the result of that? Like, what kinds of things have happened in your life since August of last year?
Well, as you said, actions lead, feelings follow, right? And emotion follows motion.
Yep.
So as I did this, and at 6:30 every single morning, I would hit that button on the garage. And it was not just walking, it was walking literally away from these demons, right? And for about a week, you know, I had these demons, and the only way I knew how to cope with this is, in my mind, grab this thing by the throat, push it to the ground, and right before it took its last breath, let it up off the ground, but make a deal with it. You're going to walk away from me, and I don't want to see you again. If I need you, I'll come see you, but don't bother me anymore.
Wow.
And after a while of doing that, I started to see my life change. You know, you're the doctor here, ironically, a neurosurgeon. I don't know what the word is, but, you know, I've read some about dopamine and how people say, be high on life. And I always wondered, you know, I never felt that before, maybe as a child or in high school or college, but never as an adult until now. And after about a week or two, I'm telling you, I don't understand how to, or I don't know how the words to put it into what it really feels like, but I was on top of the world. I mean, it was unbelievable. Well, I'd walk in the gym, and my workout partner is an oral surgeon, Air Force as well. And he was just amazed and thrilled that in a matter of 12 hours, I had quit the chronic use of alcohol for a 30-year period.
Wow.
By changing my mind. And it literally changed my life from just people that drink and as much as I did understand what it feels like, and those that quit, obviously, hopefully feel as good as I do. But you go from a mess emotionally to literally, like I said, Uncle Dennis gave me the gift of freedom.
Wow. You know, so if you had a 30-year habit, Will, there's obviously anytime we're using alcohol to that extent, we're doing it to cover something else up. I don't know if you've read Brene Brown's books, but she talks about numbing, how we use substances or pornography or gambling or overeating or whatever to numb ourselves from something else that we don't want to feel, right? But the problem is you can't selectively numb. So when you numb yourself to that thing, you end up numbing yourself to everything else too. So you don't feel your relationships the same way. You don't feel joy the same way. You don't enjoy your work in the same way. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, you don't feel anything the same way because you're so numbed and your brain's handcuffed, and it's not allowed to function as it normally would. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what happens then? At some point, you have to make a decision. I need to be willing to feel these things that I was trying not to feel in order that I can feel everything else too, the good stuff.
Yes, I trusted you is what it boils down to. I trusted this self-help brain surgery, and I listened to these podcasts as I walked. And I wondered about support groups and go to the doctor and all. I said, you know what? I don't need that. All I need is this right here to keep my mind going in the right direction. And it literally got me back to where I should be, which is without this crutch, And, you say masking. I would sit in my apartment there in New Jersey and have an overwhelming feeling of loneliness. And that's just unlike me. I'm too much of a social people person. I love that fact about dealing with, there was 1,800 people on that job site in New Jersey, and I loved it. I probably would come across 400 or 500 in the disciplines I was over on a daily basis. And when you go away from that and go to your apartment and you have a feeling of loneliness, and my go-to call out of the bullpen in the ninth inning was large amounts of vodka, and I would feel better again. And that just led to every day. And when I wasn't working, it'd start in the morning. I'd make a drink and go to the gym.
Wow.
Take the drink with me to the gym. And you're literally right. You're masking something. I still don't know what that is. I'm trying to mask. But at this point in time, I don't dwell on it because I feel so great about my life. And if you look at my life, people say, man, you lost your job. You got no house. You know what I mean? I lived on the road for 5 years. It was a choice of mine. And under contract, you're great. But when your contract ends, if you don't have a plan moving forward, luckily I put some money away, but the reality is your life changes drastically when you lose your contract, lose your job, don't have a path forward at least on the short term. It's tough. People look at you and go, man, how the heck did you do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That's your go-to, right?
Wow. So,
So I should be this miserable person, if I choose to be, but I choose not to. Point.
It is a choice. I mean, you're exactly right. And that's the whole point of the book I'm trying to write, Infinitely Happier, is that we get to choose how we feel. I mean, you don't get to choose what happens to you, but you do get to choose how you feel. And you do get to choose what you do next, right? So life often hands us stuff. 2020 was a great example for everybody. Like sometimes life's going to pile the poop on you, but you get to choose what you do next. You can wash it off and move on, or you can just let it bury you and die, right? And so I love your story, but something I wanted to point out to you, Will, that I hope you know this, but you need to hear it probably. One of the things that has been helpful to me, of course, I've been really open about why I started doing this. We lost a son in 2013, and wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I basically came to a choice where I said I needed to find a way to encourage my other kids and my wife and my family, and how do we recover from this great loss? And it was in that process of trying to find the words to say every day. And you're a songwriter, so like people who write sometimes express themselves better writing than they do in speaking out loud. And so for me, like writing emails to my family, writing stuff to my kids was a way of how are we going to get through this together? And that turned into my newsletter, which turned into my podcast and all of that in the book and all that stuff. And so what I've learned over time is that when somebody shares their story, that story that they share hits somebody else almost inevitably right where they needed something. And then that person who hears it takes that and it becomes part of their story, and then they share it with somebody else. And so here's a good example of this. I started podcasting, which I didn't know you. I knew of you. I know your parents, and I'm married to your cousin, but we've never actually met face to face. But I had no idea that these words I was speaking into this microphone were helping you out there. Well, you've got a friend in New Jersey named Sheila. You know Sheila?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I do.
So your friend Sheila reached out to me and said, "Hey, my friend Will has told me about you, and I started listening to your podcast and reading your books, and it's really helping me." And then now she has heard me say that I'm struggling with writer's block. So now Sheila is emailing me yesterday randomly to say, "Hey, you need to write today. Sit down and write your book. Get after it." And so here we have a great example, a very small little microcosm of how community is so vital, Will. So you have one person who's got a problem. They deal with that problem by writing. Another person has a problem and deals with it by listening to a podcast. They share it with another person who has a problem by being a good friend. And the circle closes by, now I've got a friend in New Jersey who's helping me deal with writer's block, right? So isn't that beautiful? That's a beautiful example of what happens when you're willing to talk about your life.
Sheila is one of my priority people I mentioned in my group of support. And, we lean on each other a lot, 2,500 miles away. She's very disciplined, very successful, very positive, and she's going through her own transition as well. It's really amazing. You're getting a lot of people in my little inner circle listening to you at this point in time. So it is amazing how it works.
Well, I just think it's a good example of why the Bible tells us to go to church, right? So in Hebrews, it says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, because the idea is that it's really, really bad for you to be alone. And it's really, really good for you to be connected to other people. And just like you said, when you're alone, then the enemy, your brain, the devil, however you want to view it, starts telling you things that aren't true. Like you're never going to be successful again. You're always going to be alone. You're going to die an alcoholic in the gutter. Your son's not going to love you. You'll never find another job. That sort of stuff is in your head all the time when you're alone. And you cover that with alcohol because you don't want to feel it. You don't want to hear it. And all of us have something that we use to numb ourselves from life. And what the Lord says is, shine a light in all those places. Let the light in and use what was happening to you to help somebody else. And in so doing, you will find yourself in a better place, which is exactly what you've done. You didn't have to tell anybody. You could have just made that decision, Will, and changed it, started walking and working out. You didn't have to tell anybody that you were struggling with alcohol. But your bravery and your willingness to share that story, somebody, I promise you this, I'm no prophet, but somebody in Ecuador or France or Zambia or in Nebraska is going to hear this podcast, and they're going to say, you know what, if Will can put that vodka down, I can too. If Will can stop doing that, so can I. If he can change his mind, I can too. That's the power of being willing to share your struggles. When you keep them to yourself, they become a burden, an anchor, a millstone. When you share them, they become gifts that other people can use to heal. And I applaud you for that, Will. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I was hoping that somewhere, somebody in the world could take something out of this other than just my inner circle. It's funny. I was at dinner with the family after golf, and in walks this elegant, classy, beautiful woman. And as she came closer, her eyes literally locked on me. And all I could think when she hugged me after not seeing her for 30 years is that overwhelming feeling of freedom that this, and I was about a month or two into this, is here. I'm holding the extension of the scalpel. Mm. Your wife.
Oh, when you saw Lisa last fall. Yeah.
And saying that, as I said before, don't stray too far away from the scalpel. The scalpel provides a path to a high I can't even describe. Like I said, dopamine or whatever it is, as people say, high on life.
Yeah.
Man, it's that I'd never met you or talked to you before, but just having her there and you support her so much and talk about what she does. And I just talked to her for there just a little bit. And I thought, man, if I ever had a chance to to tell people what I'm going through, they would understand that there is a chance. There's a light at the end of the tunnel for people trying, is what I'm trying to say is. And right now, that the fear that I used to have for tomorrow is no longer there because of the actions I take today. And it's that simple.
That's exactly right. I love that. The fear about tomorrow goes away because of the actions that you take today. I love that. I'm going to steal that, okay? I'm going to steal that.
Whatever I can do to help, Doc.
That's very much so the idea that win the morning, win the day, that came from one of the Peloton instructors. I was on the treadmill one morning, and his name is Chase Lewis. And actually it might be, Lewis might not be his last name. It's been a while since I saw him, but Chase is his first name. And he said, win the morning. Get on the treadmill, beat the morning, you will win the day. And I thought, I'm stealing that. So I stole it with credit. But so good idea. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And Will, I know you got to get on the road. I can't thank you enough for being willing to share this story, because it is going to help. I get this weird little email. There's a service that, I don't know how they do it, but they track the number of downloads of podcasts around the world in different places. And of course, in the United States, there's zillions of podcasts, and there's hundreds of millions of people listening to podcasts. And I don't know if mine ever will crack into the top 500 in Christianity in America. But last week in Ecuador, it was in the top 100 Christian podcasts. And the week before that in Zambia, it was in the top 10. So people around the world are hearing this. It's not just Nebraska and Texas. And so I'm prophesying today, not really prophesying, but I'm predicting today that somebody somewhere is going to hear what you said, and they're going to change their life. They're going to change their mind, and they're going to change their life starting today. And Will, I pray that you'll keep taking those walks, that the joy and peace that you're finding will produce great fruit in your life, and in Will's and in Wyatt's and your future grandkids, and great things are going to happen because you decided to win the day. And just really grateful. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, Lee, and thanks for what you're doing as well. And one more thing that I've never told you. My son tells me all the time, he goes, Dad, quit saying that to people. Anybody with any salt is tired of hearing it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Thank you for your service to our country.
Oh, I never get tired of that. Thank you so much. Hey, folks, Will McDonald here. By the way, if you are in the market for a really nice custom-built rifle, Will and his nephew Colton are building some great rifles for me and my friend Al. So let me know if you want me to talk to Will about building a rifle for you. Will, get on the road. Good luck in your new endeavors. We'll be praying for you. And I'm sending you a couple of books soon, so I look forward to the time that we can sit face-to-face, brother.
Thanks, Lee. I appreciate it. Tell your lovely wife hello for me, my cousin.
I will do so, and keep it up, brother. We'll talk to you soon. God bless.
Yes, sir.
Well, I really appreciate Will and his willingness to share his story with us today. I hope that was a blessing to you. And no matter where you are, just know that sharing your story is helpful, that the decisions you make and the triumphs you achieve, the things you overcome, they will inspire and help other people, but you have to be willing to talk about them. So let's don't be in a silo all by ourselves. The enemy will lie to you. He'll make you feel alone, make you feel like nobody else has ever felt or dealt with what you're dealing with. But the fact is, everything is pretty common among us humans, and we have a lot to share with each other in different ways that we can help each other. And always you can help yourself by doing a little self-brain surgery, because you can't change your mind until you change your life. One last thing, Will told me that if there's somebody that hears this story, if you're struggling with alcohol or any of the issues that Will talked about, if you want somebody else to talk to, he said he would be happy to converse via email or maybe even on the phone with somebody out there. If there's somebody who feels like Will's story or getting to know Will better would help them, send me an email, lee@drleewarren.com. Hey, Harvey. Hey, Lewis. And we will connect you with Will. So, my friend, I'm glad you enjoyed this today. Hope it was helpful to you. And as always, start today. Hey, thanks for listening. The Dr. Lee Warren podcast is brought to you by I've Seen the Interview, a neurosurgeon's look at faith, doubt, and the things we think we know, available everywhere books are sold, from Penguin Random House. Hey, don't forget to support your local booksellers. Don't forget also to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And you can go to my website, wleewarrenmd.com, for more information about my newsletter, wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter, my books, and more. The theme music for the show is Blue Highway by Poddington Bear via freemusicarchive.org. And remember, you can't change your life until you change your mind. and you have to start today. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. Thanks again to Will McDonald for being with us today. I'll talk to you soon, friend. God bless you, and have a great day.